You don't realize how quietly excuses take control of your life. They never show up as loud declarations. They don't come in the form of a dramatic breakdown. They come disguised as reasonable thoughts. I'm tired today. Maybe tomorrow. I'm not ready yet. Let me just wait for the right moment. You whisper these things to yourself, thinking you're avoiding stress, thinking you're protecting yourself. But what you're really doing is building walls slowly, silently, brick by brick, between who you are and the person you were meant to become. And the worst part is, the walls feel comfortable at first. They feel safe. They feel familiar. You mistake your limitations for your identity because you've lived inside those walls for so long that you can't tell whether they're protecting you or imprisoning you. Excuses are not just words. They are psychological barriers crafted by your own mind to defend you from discomfort. The mind loves safety more than it loves growth. It loves routine more than transformation. So the moment you even think about stepping into a new version of yourself, your mind activates a defense system. It starts flooding you with doubts. It starts amplifying risks. It starts magnifying every insecurity you've been carrying for years. And in that moment, instead of walking forward, you retreat. You tell yourself stories that make retreat feel rational. But those stories aren't truth, they're illusions. They're protective lies whispered by a fearful mind. You must understand something. You are not stuck because the world is unfair. You're not stuck because you lack skills or opportunities or intelligence. You're stuck because you've convinced yourself that staying the same is safer than becoming more. You've convinced yourself that the pain of effort is worse than the pain of regret. You've convinced yourself that your potential can wait. But potential does not wait. Potential decays when it's ignored. It withers when it's postponed. It dies when it's buried under excuses. I want you to think about how many times in your life you told yourself, I'll start next week. And then next week becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. And one day, you look in the mirror and realize it wasn't life that held you back. It was you. It wasn't society. It wasn't your past. It wasn't your circumstances. It was the story you told yourself every time progress demanded a little discomfort from you. Because that's the truth nobody likes to admit. Growth always asks for something. It asks for discipline. It asks for patience. It asks for consistency. It asks for sacrifices. And excuses will always feel easier than making those sacrifices. Excuses allow you to remain the same without feeling guilty. They give you emotional permission to avoid responsibility. But every time you choose an excuse, you make the walls around you thicker. Every time you postpone your own growth, you strengthen the prison you're living in. But here's the part you need to sit with. Those walls were never built to protect you. They were built to imprison you. They don't shield you from failure. They trap you in stagnation. They don't save you from discomfort. They suffocate your potential. And if you don't break those walls intentionally, they will become the architecture of your entire life. A life where you settle. A life where you shrink. A life where you know deep inside that you were capable of something far greater, but never had the courage to claim it. You have two selves inside, you at all times. The self that wants growth and the self that wants comfort. And every excuse you make feeds the weaker self. Every excuse strengthens the part of you that fears change. Every excuse starves the part of you that dreams of more. And one day, if you keep choosing excuses, the dreamer inside you, your most powerful self, will weaken to the point where its voice becomes barely audible. That's how potential dies. Not in one day, but gradually, quietly, through years of justified delay. It's time to see excuses for what they really are. The language of fear pretending to be the voice of logic. The words you speak when you're too afraid to let go of who you are, even though a greater version of you is begging to be born. You've built these walls, but you can break them. You created these excuses, but you can silence them. You chose safety over growth, but you can choose differently now. Because the truth is simple. Your excuses are not protecting you. They are suffocating the very future you say you want. And the longer you entertain them, the further you drift from the life that could be yours. And if you truly want progress, if you truly want transformation, if you truly want to stop feeling stuck, then you must be willing to say, no more walls. If you want progress, real progress, you must confront the hardest truth. Your habits are shaping your destiny long before your dreams ever get a chance to. Most people think their life will change when their motivation increases, when their circumstances improve, when inspiration finally hits like lightning. But that's not how real transformation works. Your life does not rise to the level of your dreams. It falls to the level of your habits. Because habits are the silent architects of your reality. They are the daily rituals that either pull you forward or slowly drag you backwards without you ever noticing. And if you don't intentionally shape your habits, they will shape you often into someone you never planned to become. Think for a moment about your current routine. Not the one you fantasize about. Not the one you promise you'll start next Monday. The real one, the habits you live with every single day. The small patterns you repeat when nobody's watching. The reflexes your mind defaults to when you're tired, stressed, bored, or overwhelmed. Those invisible patterns are the true directors of your life. Because your habits are not just behaviors. They are expressions of your identity. They reflect what you value, what you fear, what you avoid, and what you're willing to tolerate in yourself. And the uncomfortable truth is that many people tolerate habits that quietly destroy them. We imagine our future being shaped in dramatic moments, big decisions, bold moves, sudden opportunities. But the future is shaped in the small hours of the morning, in the choices you make when no one is judging you, in the moments where it feels easier to scroll than improve, easier to complain than take responsibility, easier to fantasize than commit. Progress is not built on monumental effort. It is built on consistent, intentional discipline over time. And nothing exposes your true commitment to progress like your habits do. You must ask yourself, what behaviors am I normalizing that are slowly killing my potential? What patterns am I repeating that keep me stuck in a life I keep saying I want to escape? What routines am I living with that belong to the version of me I claim I want to outgrow? Because you cannot rise while holding on to habits designed for a smaller version of your life. The person you want to become cannot survive on the habits of who you used to be. Most people underestimate the power of repetition. They think one day of skipping effort doesn't matter. One day of laziness doesn't matter. One day of distraction doesn't matter. But one day becomes 2, 2 becomes 10, 10 becomes a lifestyle. And suddenly years pass, and you look back realizing you weren't stuck. You were repeating habits that kept you in the same loop. Think of your habits as the compass guiding your life. Even if your dream is north, if your habits pull you south, you will never reach where you say you want to go. Your direction will always overpower your intention, and your daily actions are your direction. You need to see habits not as chores, but as psychological anchoring points. Every habit you repeat rewires your mind. It reinforces an identity. When you choose discipline, even in the smallest way, you strengthen the part of yourself that believes you are capable. When you choose avoidance, you strengthen the part of yourself that believes you are weak. This is why even tiny habits matter. Because every repetition is a vocast for the person you are becoming. And here's the truth many people run from. You already have discipline. You already have consistency. You already have routines. But you're using them against yourself. You are consistent in avoiding discomfort. You are disciplined in feeding your distractions. You are faithful to the habits that numb your potential. Imagine what your life would become if you redirected that same energy, that same commitment, that same loyalty toward habits that build you instead of breaking you. Progress begins the moment you take ownership of your patterns. When you stop looking at your life as something happening to you and start seeing it as something you are creating moment by moment through your choices. When you stop saying, "I don't have time," and start admitting, "Haven't prioritized it." When you stop telling yourself, "I'll try," and start saying, "I'll do." When you stop waiting for the right mood, the right moment, the right feeling, and start acting because you know your future demands it. You must become brutally honest with yourself. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with luck, motivation, or miracles. It is filled with habits. Habits that require effort, repetition, structure, and sometimes discomfort. But discomfort is not your enemy. It is the doorway to becoming who you were meant to become. Your habits are already building your life. The question is, are they building the life you want or the life you settled for? To understand why you're not making progress, you must confront a truth far more uncomfortable than excuses or habits. You are negotiating with your own limitations. You are bargaining with your fear, compromising with your comfort, and surrendering to the smallest voice inside you, the one that wants life to be easy instead of meaningful. You don't realize it, but every time you choose the path of least resistance, you enter into a silent agreement with the version of yourself that wants to stay exactly where you are. And the moment you negotiate with your limitations, your potential loses. Most people think their limitations are external: lack of time, lack of resources, lack of support. But the most powerful limitations are internal. The beliefs you carry, the fears you protect, the insecurities you defend, and the comfort zones you worship. These inner limitations are not walls blocking your path. They are the cages you have learned to live inside. And the most dangerous part? You've decorated those cages. You've made them feel safe. You've convinced yourself that staying inside them is logical, responsible, even realistic. You tell yourself, "I'll start when I feel ready," because you don't want to confront the insecurity that says you might fail. You tell yourself, "I don't have the confidence yet," because you don't want to confront the fear of seeing who you really are when confidence is stripped away. You tell yourself, "This is just who I am," because you don't want to confront the truth that every part of you can be changed if you stop protecting your limitations, like they're a part of your identity. But the truth is simple. Your limitations only have power because you believe their voice more than your potential's voice. Think of the last time you avoided something important. The last time you didn't try. The last time you told yourself it wasn't the right moment. What emotion was hiding underneath? Fear, doubt, overthinking, perfectionism, shame. These emotions don't block your path. They drain your strength by making you believe the fight isn't worth it. And the more you listen to them, the more they grow. Every time you choose comfort over progress, you feed the limitations that are trying to keep your life small. You need to understand something deeply. Your limitations are liars. They are shaped by your past, not your future. They were built in moments of pain, not moments of truth. They grew from situations where you didn't yet know your strength. They were born in the version of you that was still surviving, not the version of you that is ready to evolve. And if you continue allowing old limitations to dictate new chapters of your life, you will repeat the same year again and again and call it being realistic. Your limitations are also incredibly fragile. They only survive when you stop testing them. Every hesitation you entertain gives those limitations power. Every time you say, "I can't," you reinforce a belief that was never true. But the moment you push against the limitation, even in a small way, you begin to see how weak it actually is. Most limitations collapse the moment they are confronted with consistent action. They rely on your avoidance. They rely on your silence. They rely on your willingness to accept them as permanent. You are not weak. You are not incapable. You are not behind. What you are is under the influence of a narrative you didn't create but keep repeating. And progress begins the moment you stop negotiating with that narrative. The moment you stop treating your limitations as facts and start treating them as fears. The moment you stop arguing for your limitations and start fighting for your potential. Your mind will always try to protect you from discomfort. It is wired to keep you safe, not to help you grow. Safety feels like comfort. Growth feels like uncertainty. And because you have lived so long inside the illusion of safety, you have convinced yourself that uncertainty means danger. But uncertainty is simply the birthplace of every version of you that you haven't met yet. Uncertainty is the threshold to your next level. You can't evolve without walking through it. Real progress comes when you make a decision to stop postponing your life until you feel fearless and instead show up despite the fear. To stop waiting for perfect conditions and instead create progress from imperfect action. To stop letting your limitations sit at the negotiating table of your life. You cannot negotiate with a cage and expect freedom. Every limitation in your life is a doorway. The question is whether you're willing to walk through it, whether you're willing to challenge the patterns that have kept you trapped, whether you're willing to question the beliefs that have kept you ordinary, whether you're willing to risk becoming someone you don't fully recognize yet, because that version of you, the stronger you, the disciplined you, the focused you, the resilient you, is not hiding behind excuses. It is hiding behind the limitations you refuse to confront. And the moment you stop negotiating with those limitations, your progress finally begins. Every excuse you choose is silently shaping the person you're becoming. When you look at your life honestly, really honestly, you'll notice something uncomfortable. The person you are today is not shaped by your dreams, your intentions, or your hidden potential. It is shaped by what you allowed, by the excuses you repeated, by the limits you chose to accept. People often think their future is shaped by some huge breakthrough, some dramatic turning point. But the truth is far more subtle and far more confronting. Your future is being sculpted in the tiny, invisible moments when you decide to delay, to avoid, to hesitate, to hide behind a reason that feels logical but is actually fear wearing a mask. You become the things you justify. You become the habits you defend. You become the weaknesses you give permission to stay. Every time you said, "I'll start tomorrow," you were not just postponing action. You were training your mind to believe that tomorrow is a safe place to dump your potential. Every time you said, "I don't have time," you weren't stating a fact. You were declaring that your dreams were not important enough to reorganize your day around. Each excuse sounds harmless on the surface, but underneath, it is carving the architecture of your character, silently rewriting the story of who you are becoming. And the version being written is often smaller than the version you were meant to be. The truth is, excuses never come alone. They come with consequences. You don't just delay progress. You delay identity. You delay growth. You delay the birth of the stronger self hiding inside you. People often think they're protecting themselves by avoiding discomfort. But the reality is, you're protecting the weaker version of yourself, the version that fears effort, the version that resists discipline, the version that wants comfort more than transformation. And that version becomes stronger every time you choose an excuse. You're not just battling laziness. You're battling an identity that was formed through years of convenient choices. And nothing is harder to break than an identity that feels safe. You see, your excuses have become your shield, your defense mechanism. They defend you from pressure, from failure, from judgment. But they also defend you from evolution. They defend you from possibility. They defend you from the life that is calling you. That's the tragedy of excuses. They pretend to protect you, but they slowly imprison you. And here's the part we rarely admit. Excuses are comfortable. They're familiar. They allow you to remain in the world you already understand, even if that world is unfulfilling. Making excuses feels like self-care sometimes. You convince yourself you're being patient. You're being gentle with yourself. You're waiting for the right moment. But let me ask you something dangerous. How many right moments have you waited for and never used? How many times has your potential suffocated because you kept telling yourself you weren't ready? There is no such thing as ready. There is only willing or unwilling. And excuses have trained you to be unwilling. That's why change feels painful. You're not fighting your future. You're fighting your familiar. You're fighting the version of yourself you fed for years through avoidance, overthinking, and hesitation. Breaking excuses isn't about forcing productivity. It's about breaking identity, reshaping belief, and confronting the truth that you have been holding yourself back in ways you didn't even notice. You already know this. Deep down, you feel it. There are days when you catch yourself imagining a life where you're disciplined, focused, unstoppable. But then you run into the old patterns that whisper, "Not today." Not today because you're tired. Not today because you're busy. Not today because life is too overwhelming. Not today because you'll try again next week. And those tiny whispers determine the direction of your entire life. You are not losing to difficulty. You are losing to the voice that tells you to wait. And here's the painful truth. The world won't stop you from becoming less than you could be. Society won't punish you for staying average. No alarm will ring when you drift away from your potential. Life won't warn you when you're wasting your gifts. That's why excuses are so dangerous. They destroy you quietly. You don't notice the damage until years later when you look back and realize you traded your future for short-term comfort without even realizing it. But there is one spark that can flip everything. The moment you decide that excuses are no longer acceptable currency in your life. The moment you decide that discomfort is not a threat, it's a doorway. The moment you stop negotiating with your weaker self. That is the moment progress begins, not because the world changes, but because you finally stop protecting your limitations and start protecting your potential. Your future is not built on your motivation. It is built on your decisions. And the moment you choose to stop feeding excuses, a different version of you begins to rise. A version that doesn't wait, doesn't hesitate, doesn't shrink. The version that acts, because excuses may feel harmless today, but they have been shaping your destiny every single day. And once you see that truth, making progress is no longer optional. It becomes inevitable.